back with part 2 of the Ask Your Crafter 40 Marathon. I feel like I'm on the real world. The real world marathon. The glasses are slightly less full than they were in the last one, and
I think we need less clothes on too for doing that. You know, the MTV Real World.
Oh my gosh!
I think our viewership might go down.
I wasn't saying we were gonna do it.
Oh my gosh, you finished your drink already? Okay, now we're getting all the weirdos commenting.
Oh yeah.
Wonderful. All right, Lorraine, what do you have for a question?
Okay. Kristen K. Does room temperature affect how Prismacolor pencils lay down on paper? Like you, I craft in a basement. I've been amazed and even trying to mount my hand at some of the photorealistic work on YouTube. I'm really disappointed with the outcome so far. Most don't seem to use a solvent and still get a creamy color. I get a lot of pencil marks. Is it like Goldilocks? You have to color, not so hard, not so soft, but just right?
Oh, kind of like that. But at first I want to ask you to look at your box of Prismacolors and tell me what kind they are. If they are the Premier or the regular ones, then they should be really easy to blend. If you have the very thin or Verithian, depending on how you want to say it, those are thinner and harder leads, and they're not going to blend as well. So if you have those, they sell them at Staples. They sell them in art stores too, but they're I think they have them at all the Staples. So those are better for like putting in detail lines. Like if you're, say you're drawing a cat and then you want to put some whiskers in at the end, you don't want to use those Verithian or very thin pencils because they'd be less likely to break and they would give you that nice sharp point. So if they're a regular Prismacolor pencil, if they have a nice thick lead, temperature shouldn't really affect them that much. I have no problem getting thick creamy color in my basement. It's like, 54 degrees in the winter, so it's not, I don't think that's much of an issue. And plus when you're coloring, it's going to warm up the paper. I tend to go lighter at first and then I'll layer over the heavier colors, so you do need to make sure you're getting a lot of color onto the paper for it to blend. But that's it. It's going to blend a little easier on smoother paper. With rougher paper you have to use more product because it has to fill in all the nooks and crannies of the paper, but it can hold a lot more pigment. So maybe your paper's a little too slick, maybe your paper's a little too rough, so it is kind of like Goldilocks. Just keep experimenting. I like to put my darks in first fairly firmly, and then I kind of go over with my mid-range and then my highlights, and then I will keep adding more color until I get a blend that I like. Nothing really beats experience and experimenting with those. So I think you probably just need to try a couple different papers. Yeah. Make sure your pencils are the regular Prismacolors, and if they're not, Prime makes a decent colored pencil. You don't have to break the bank and go buy another set. You could try those for now, or just go to the art store if you are lucky to have one that sells open stock, and just get like a white and the colors that you really like, and you don't have to go and buy them by the set. You can get a few as you need them.
So if she's talking about doing photorealistic, I'm assuming it's probably perhaps people,
could be.
Maybe in color. So what would you recommend for paper? Like if you were going to do
a portrait?
Yeah.
I would recommend Canson Me Tints paper, MI-TINTES. It's a paper that is rough on one side and smoother on the other. And it's you can get it
double versatility.
Yep.
That's nice.
Yep, and you can get it at pretty much any art and craft supply. I think would have it. But if you have a hard time finding it, you can order it from like Blick Art Materials. Joanne might have it, but Blick definitely does. It's hard to beat Blick as far as price and availability and customer service. So I would try there for that paper. And you can get it in pads. You don't have to buy the big sheets, because before when I was doing a lot of pastel and color pencil work, I have to buy a ream of 25 sheets. Or assorted. You could buy assorted and pay a little bit more per sheet, but it was, now they have it in pads. It's so much easier to obtain.
Was that me? That was you. That was me.
It was my turn.
Thank goodness, don't fight.
You got 2 questions ago.
Oh,
okay.
But if I have another drink, I won't mind.
She won't. No one's gonna care. Come next video.
Radiam 1965 says hi there to both of you. To last week's Ask Your Crafter, where Lorraine had already headed to the stand show.
She left us today.
You guys are awesome. She has 2 questions. I have a Cricut and now would like an embossing machine, so I'm wondering which one you would recommend. Thanks in advance.
Oh, is that it? I'm chewing the pineapple.
Sorry, I can read the second question if you need time to
No, that's right. I would, well, it depends. I've seen, not in the United States, but sometimes I watch it. Excuse me. That Create and Craft show on the computer. Mm-hmm. It's a UK channel. It's like home shopping, but it's all craft stuff. And thank goodness it's in the UK and I can't order because, oh my gosh.
Kidding.
Yeah, I would have I don't know, the full spectrum Noir new set and pencils. Oh, it'd be a mess. But they have like 8.5 by 11 embossing folders, or maybe it's a little bit bigger because they have that crazy
Really?
European size paper. But that's like the Craftwell e-bosser, I think.
Ooh.
And I think you could put dies in it too. So I think if I was going to get another cranky machine, I would get like the Big Shot Pro, or but that's also an investment. So if you don't think you're ever going to need to emboss anything that big, then I would go with like a Big Shot, regular Big Shot. But if you're going to want to do like the large dies, the dies that are bigger than 6 inches wide, or the bigger those big embossing folders, which I don't know if we can even get them in the United States.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would go with like one of the bigger machines that will hopefully do it all. The only downside of those is that I hear that the because it's two rollers that are being cranked together, the middle tends to lose pressure, and I think that's why we don't see as many of those machines, or we haven't yet, is that they kind of lose their pressure in the middle. So I would definitely talk to somebody who owns one before I purchased it, but I would think the Big Shot Pro would be a safe bet, because it's,
For the bigger one.
or just jump in and get an AccuCut machine, because that's but that's very professional. That's like if you want to start selling die cuts and stuff.
Oh.
For just the regular home one. Yours
Yeah.
is the Big
I
Shot.
have a Big Shot. I
and you
really
have
like
the
a Big Shot.
I like my
Yeah.
Big Shot.
And you've
Yeah.
had it for a long time and used it.
2008, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yep, and I've never need to
paces.
repair it or anything. It's excellent. And but that only takes up to 6 inches wide, so but it could take as long as you want. As long as you have cutting pads for, so.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and her second question says, I want to ask you another question. Surprise. Since you are the go-to girl. What do you think of ordering from Etsy? Do you order from them? And if you do, what are some of your faves for card making? Thanks for all your time.
I haven't. I don't think I might have ordered some like fused glass bales from Etsy, from an Etsy seller before. Don't remember who it was. When I'm searching for like usually jewelry, finding something that's kind of hard to find, then I'll look at eBay, and I'll usually do a search, and sometimes Etsy comes up, sometimes eBay. There's other different companies that come up. So I really don't have any faves. If anyone has any favorite Etsy sellers, go ahead and leave a comment so she can kind of look through and see if there's anybody that anyone else recommends. Do you guys have any Etsy faves?
I've never
No.
ordered.
It's such a huge site. It's kind of too big. It's so. It's a bunch of little shops, but
It
can be kind of overwhelming.
I think so. Maria Bayless says, I have a lot of stamp blocks, or I have a lot of stamp blocks. I want to know which one is your favorite and which one is better.
Oh, my favorite by far is the Impression Obsession Mega Mount.
Love
And they
that.
have a Mega Mini now, right? Is
Yeah,
it
I
called
saw
the Mega
that.
Mini?
I
Tracy
saw
got
it, yeah.
Tracy got that.
Yeah, but I didn't. I think that just because I can put anything on this.
Right.
The most finicky stamps stamp beautifully on this. It's slightly curved, and what you do is you stamp and you curve it. I actually used it in my stained glass video I just posted yesterday. So if you want to see it in action, you can go check that out. This is expensive. I think this is $25.
Something like
So it's a consideration. It's an investment. The Crafter's Companion makes Rock-A-Blocks, which are very similar. They're actually designed to be used with like stamps that have no cushion on them. So, which is a very inexpensive way. If you just take your stamps, you buy bare rubber and you just put like a adhesive on the back. And it's got little rails on it, so you don't rock. It has stability, and you rock it. The same thing, but it helps stabilize it. And I've actually used stamps with cushion on them too. So either of those I think would be good bets. The Crafter's Companion ones I think you can get for different size blocks for about $15. So those are quite a bit cheaper. This is very well made, very heavy duty. This one's my favorite. I like the handle on it. But the downside is you really can't use this for anything where you need to position something exactly. This is more for larger background stamps where, if it's like a centimeter off, it doesn't matter. So if you're trying to stamp a bird on top of a birdhouse, this is not the tool for you. You want like a little acrylic stamp mount. But I love this thing. I bought it 3 years ago at the stamp show. I almost didn't because I was so cheap, and that was $25, and I was just like, oh my gosh.
That's a lot, yeah.
And Kathy's like, are you kidding me, Lindsay?
Yeah, I was not being unreasonable. It was all she had talked about the first place she wanted to go. And she kept talking about it, and then we
it's
get
a
there, and we're
lot.
there, and
When
she
you're
almost
frugal.
didn't do it. So.
Yeah, it was like 15 minutes left in the show. She's like, are you kidding me? Go buy that.
It's worth it.
I'm so glad I did.
I love that.
It's probably only cost me like half a cent a piece,
Yeah.
how much, probably less than that, how much I've used it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I've actually used mine too, which says.
Oh, that's right. You got one of those too. Yeah, they're fabulous, especially for
Yeah.
backgrounds. They give the pressure all the way through the stamp, because a lot of times you stamp and there'll be like a pocket of air or something in the middle of that stamp won't get the pressure, like the dies. You know, the rollers don't get the
Right.
pressure in the middle.
It does.
So yeah, it's fantastic. I
And
can't recommend it
I
enough.
have the kids, the girls, use it because of course they're not so sure about
Right.
making sure and double checking that they push down everywhere.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I have them use it because then they're almost guaranteed a good print.
Right, and that's by Impression Obsession. They have a website, so you can order it right online if you can't get to a stamp show. I think it's the same price either way. It doesn't matter. Well, sometimes they give you a deal. Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah, buy 3 things.
You're
get
gonna
one
buy
free,
buy
4
things. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Buy the one thing you want along with some other things because it's a good deal.
Right.
No, they're all good. I've liked everything I got from them.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And tell them you heard it from us.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. That'll make a big impression.
We do not wish to be associated with those three.
Right, and impression obsession. And iCat Stacy 77 is, can you recommend a brand of watercolors that are mid-range in cost and are very vivid and bright? Thanks, Stacy.
Okay. I think I would recommend those colors that Tracy brought to the stamp show. They were Koi, Koi. They had a set of, what was that, 30? What was that,
It
30?
was 24.
Was it 24 colors? There were a lot, 24 half pans of color. It came with a little water brush, a little palette, all folded up.
Cutest little palette.
It was adorable, and I think it was about $30. And but you can get it at AC Moore and use a coupon, so you can get it for 15 or whatever. So that's probably the best bargain. I also like the Cotman sets. They're it's a student grade paint. It's what I do my tutorials with, mainly because this palette's smaller. I can fit it on my table under my camera. Those are really good for mid-range paints too. I think the Cotman. I just ordered 6 of them because I'm doing a watercolor class, and that's what I'm going to have the students use. And I got $14 a piece at Dick Blick on the Cotman sets. It's the small 12 half pan Cotman sets at Dick Blick. They're 14, so that's not a bad price. And it comes with a little brush too.
Okay, this is still kind of part of the
Okay.
same question because it's has to do with watercolors, and it's T. Durnford 1. Hi, I was wondering about the types of watercolor paints. I have little tubes of watercolor paint. I was wondering what the difference was between the tube paint and the pan sets I've seen. Which would be the best to work with, and what would be a good brand to look for, and other tips I should know about them would be great. Thanks.
Okay, well, I like pans of color, so when I get tubes, I squirt them into my watercolor palette and I make pans of color. So it depends whether you want to do that or you want to buy them already in pans. Pans are a little harder to find in the States. I think they might be a little more common in the UK. But it's personal preference. It's if you buy a pan of color, it's already ready to go, and you just gotta wet your brush and go to town. And they've been formulated to be dry in the palette. Some artists will say never let your tube paints dry in the palette in your watercolor palette. They're not designed for that. Well, that's not really true. I know the M. Graham watercolors are designed to be squeezed out into your palette, and they stay semi-moist, for years and years and years, and they work great. And I think it might be cheaper to get a set of pans than to buy like a bunch of tubes and a palette and get going that way. So it's really personal preference, but I think for ease of use, if you're a beginner, I would just get a set of pans. And, you can refill them with tubes. So if you realize you love, alizarin crimson, you've used it up before anything else, you don't buy a new set,
Right.
go to the art supply store, buy a tube of alizarin crimson, and sap green, and as you use them up, buy a nice, even go up to artist grade, buy a really nice tube of that color. So that tube might cost you $6 or more, but you'll see how you've actually used it and how it does last a long time. And artist quality paints do last longer than student quality paints. So I think that's a really smart way to do it. That way you don't end up buying expensive tubes of paint you're not going to use.
And those pans would be like the Koi or the Cotman that you just
Yeah.
recommended.
Yeah, I refill my Cotman pans when they run out all the time. They don't run out all the time. They last a long time, but when they do, I don't buy a new pan. You can buy them by the pan and replace the pan, but I buy the tubes and fill them.
Okay, Edna Miller says, I have new Spectrum Noir colored pencils, which are wax-based. I would like to know if I can use them with oil-based colored pencils, like Faber-Castell.
Yep, you can use them. You probably want to put your Faber-Castells first, so if you know you're going to use them both together, I would lay down the colors with the Faber-Castells first, because they're going to be a little drier feeling, and then I would go over them with the wax-based pastels, which will be a little bit fatter. There's something called the fat over lean rule, so when you're working with mediums, you want each layer that you add on top to be fatter or slower drying. And in this case, they're going to be slicker, and they're your oil-based pencils won't stick over the wax-based pencils as well, but your wax-based pencils will stick over the oil-based pencils.
That seems so odd to me that the oil-based would be the drier ones.
Yeah, they are in that case. Yeah.
Inherently in the name, it seems.
But I don't think there's as
wetter.
much. Yeah, there's not so much binder in there, I don't think. Yeah, those are nice pencils. I have the
I had no idea that they had. Is it new, or
Nope.
they've been around for a while and they just came out with the alcohol markers?
The Spectrum Noir pencils, they're new, but wax or oil pencils have been around for.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of times photo tinters will use the oil pencils.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Is
or
that
they'll
what
use
they
them on
use?
wood.
Okay.
Yep. Sometimes they'll use oil pencils on wood.
Patty Hicks says, when you do your videos about watercolor products, would you please include Blick's liquid watercolor in the mix too?
Oh, sure. Sure.
There you go.
Yep, haven't got to that yet.
Okay.
Hopefully this summer.
Patrina, oh yeah, lots of time in the summertime with the kids around and running them here. Patrina Beads says, fantastic AAC. Thanks for answering those questions, even mine. I do have another one. I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos where the artists use Tim Holtz distress paints to create the background for their journal pages. I researched the prices. Of course, I want to buy them all, but I'm limited. And was wondering if you know what the difference is between his distress paints and regular acrylic paint.
Well, I haven't used his distress paints, but I don't think there's much of a difference. In fact, I got little caps to go on my 2-ounce bottles at Gary Berlin.
Oh,
they have like 4 caps for $4, and you just screw them on the top of the bottle, and you've got a paint dauber on whatever acrylic paint you want.
Oh.
Yeah, so I thought that was kind of cool. I don't think there's a lot of a difference. Somebody said they made their own distress paints by putting glue, mixing glue with it. But I really don't think there's a heck of a lot of difference. Then again, I haven't used them, but I haven't really felt like there's a void in my life that needs to be filled with Tim Holtz distress paints. So, have you used them?
No.
No.
Okay, and Lexi Jansma asked, would Kathy be willing to do a demo on the envelope punch that was mentioned around the 5-minute mark? I think it would be very handy to see it in action. Well, I do too.
Have you used it?
Should I wholeheartely admit that even though I've been a crafter for a long, long time, I'm really still kind of in the collecting stage. I played with it kind of just to check it out, but I didn't actually make anything. But yes, I suppose I probably could.
Yeah, and
not right now, today, because I don't have it with me. But sure.
I actually have one coming to you from Oriental Trading. They've sent me that as one of the products to use in my videos to demonstrate as well. So,
oh, really?
Yep, so I'll have one of those coming
maybe we
over.
should just let her do it then.
I'd go with that if it was me. 1979 Carmen. Can alcohol markers be used on metal? Could you recommend a good basic beginner set of alcohol markers that could be bought in any of the big box crafts?
Sure. Yes, you can use them on metal or any non-porous surface. You can use them on anything, really. They're permanent markers, but they're best on non-porous surfaces. You'll get a more vivid color. I mean, you use them on paper and they're vivid, but, you know, you can use them on anything. I like the Bic markets. You can get a set of 36 for under 20 at any of the big stores, Staples, any of your department stores, and even, I think they even have those at, like, your craft stores, too, don't they? Bic markets. They got Sharpies. Either of those will be fine. And then what I usually do, and I have several videos on using those cheap alcohol markers to get the look of the Copics. You know, it's technique. It really breaks down to technique. And I know all the companies would like you to believe that their markers are so much better. They're really all very similar. It's just the shades of colors that are offered. Like Copic has like 400 colors or something. So yeah, they've got all those really light shades. If you mix any of those really like 3 shades that are next to each other together, they're gonna blend because they're only like tiny bit different. So you need a little more skill when you're using you know, darker colors or using a more limited palette. But that's all there is to it, really. I mean, yeah, they might have nicer nibs and you can refill like the Copics and the Spectrum Noirs and the Triads, but it really comes down to skill. And so I have several videos on using Sharpies and Bics in place of Copics. So you can check those out. Bic markets I prefer them to Sharpies, but they both work fine. Okay, this is the end of part 2 of our Ask a Crafter marathon. That's all I have to say on that subject, and we'll be back shortly with some more crafty questions. Happy crafting!